Kym Nitschke is the managing partner of Nitschke Nancarrow Accountants.
By perseverance and sheer hard work, I always seem to come out on top.
He is such an interesting character. Wow.
Now, no one gets those sorts of results, but I've refined this letter. I've probably sent it out 300 times.
Having worked as a wealth builder for his clients for many years.
So as soon as I'd done my first $3 million investment for financial planning, which is a lot of money for me, then those deals were just lining up at the door.
And he's also got some very interesting other qualities.
I've gone and spoken to my mentors and they've come back and said, are you naive?
He's a qualified builder, he's a property developer, and a lifelong learner.
Who would have thought that us as accountants are moving down...
Could influence that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, It's awesome.
It's really good, works really well.
Kym's passionate about working with doctors.
There's so much scope inside of all of that to create so much wealth and do so much good that you can play by the rules and still kill it.
Kym also does some pretty unexpected things for his team members every day.
People are fighting over it. It works so well. It seems like a crazy idea.
No, it's genius. And he even has his own podcast.
You don't have to say it, but you're thinking, well, has your accountant done a podcast with you? Hi, I'm Kym Nitschke. I'm from Nitschke Nancarrow Chartered Accountants. I'm really excited about being a guest on the Accountants on Purpose podcast.
Hi, I'm Sarah Bartholomew's from YouLegal. The Accountants on Purpose podcast showcases inspiring accountants who are leaders in their field.
And then it just came to me like a bolt of blue.
What makes them tick?
Love it.
How did they get to where they are? I want to inspire. And what do they do now for their teams, their clients, and the world? Kym, how would you describe yourself in one word?
I think that the best word that describes me is being a trier. Basically that means that I'm a good all-rounder. I'm not particularly good at one thing, but by perseverance and sheer hard work, I always seem to come out on top. So trier is more like a plotter, just your everyday, ordinary person who's achieving a lot better results, in my own opinion, than I ever thought I would.
By doing things that you didn't necessarily think you would be doing?
Yeah, doing things like I never dreamt I'd be an accountant. I love my profession. I love what I've done. I love everything I've achieved. I live an amazing lifestyle. But really, if you pinpoint, was I the best at anything? I mean, I've achieved a lot more than a lot of my peers going through university. They were always getting better results. At high school, a lot of teachers put me up as being the brainy one and going into, special development classes. But when they tested my IQ, I was very average, which was very disappointing at the time because I think that I'm very intelligent, but it's a different a combination of different factors. I think I've got average IQ and probably above average EQ.
Yeah.
And combining all of that with a hard work ethic, I think you come out into achieving amazing results.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I love that. That's like a real life lesson in there.
Yeah, I just think that, as I'm getting older and I'm asked more and more about advice for clients or up and coming young accountants that I'm mentoring, I think that, just working that little bit harder than everyone else, saying no to a lot more opportunities that come across your desk than everyone else, it's almost like you feel like you're the last person standing. And I've seen so many accountants, so many friends of mine who have sort of self-destructed on the journey, and I'm the last man standing, so to speak. I've said no to those property development deals that were too good to be true. I've knocked back those clients that knock on the door and say, would you be happy to do my work for $200,000 a year? I've gone and spoken to my mentors and they've come back and said, are you naive? Do the research on that person. And I've, almost been in tears when I've knocked back some of those jobs, but in hindsight, sure enough,
all led you to
they've gone broke, those guys, and it would have just been a nightmare to deal with those people. So I've had people in my corner that have given me the right advice, and I think that it's all worked out really, really well for me. And so I think the word trier
encapsulates it
and inspires those people who are coming behind us to just keep on doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Try that little bit harder, work that extra hour at night if you can. I know that's a cliche, but I'm not one of those crazy people that work till 1 or 2 every morning. I'll go home, I'll do an extra hour or so if I can to get ready for the next day, but that's all it has to be. It's just that consistent work ethic.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Well, I think that it'd probably be like, I mean, I don't know about the superpower. I guess if I could fly, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
I love seeing things from a different perspective. If I'm flying a drone and I'm looking down and on a house or a property or a beach, just to be able to see that problem from a different perspective or that angle of that beach, it's just amazing and it blows you away. If I tried to think of a superhero, I guess it'd be like Spider-Man.
Yep.
Because, you know, I've heard when, like, he's the most successful superhero that Marvel came out with, and it was because he's got all of these shortcomings and he manages to overcome them so everyone can relate to him.
Yeah.
So I think that that's me. It's just, you know, the Aussie battler who just never quits.
Yes.
You know, and I see that with a lot of my clients. You know, they'll just get stressed out and they give up. You go, guys, you know, just have a break, step away from the problem, come back tomorrow with a fresh set of eyes and re-tackle it. Don't give up. Don't let everything get on top of you. So it's just that persistence.
Yeah, there you go. The theme. It's a theme of this podcast so far. What's something most people don't know about you?
Well, I always wanted to be a farmer.
Really? An agriculturalist?
Yes, that was my dream. I loved, feeding hay to my cows as I was growing up as a young boy, riding my motorbike. But my dad said, look, there's no money in farming. That's changed now. But he made me go to university and I became an accountant.
Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in the Adelaide Hills.
Okay.
German family.
Yeah.
We grew up in a little German village, Harndorf. All of our friends and family were all Lutherans or went to the same church, all in the same community. So I loved all of that. But all our ancestors had all been farmers and done really well. So like the model back then was that they would all work together and they'd buy a farm together and then they'd pay it off in a year and then they'd buy another one for someone else in the group. Well, that doesn't work these days.
No.
Imagine paying off an 80-acre farm in the Adelaide Hills after 1 year of work. Well, those were the good old days. Now, things have changed. So I'm glad that I've gone down the accounting route. One day, I'd love to buy that farm down the southeast, 10,000 acres, have cows and sheep and crops on it and all of that. I obviously wouldn't have the time to do it, but I'd get someone to manage it for
Future
me. But
plan.
I'd love to do something like that.
Yeah, cool.
The other thing is, most people wouldn't know that I usually bake bread for my office every day.
Every day?
I know, it's weird, isn't it?
It is weird. When do you do that?
I usually put on a loaf about 10 o'clock and it drifts, that whole
the
yeast smell drifts through the office by about...
Oh, you do it during the day?
Yeah, it takes 2 hours. So come 12, 1 o'clock, it's just gold.
Ready for
People are fighting
lunch.
over it.
Yeah, I bet.
It works so well. It seems like a crazy idea,
No,
but
it's genius.
It's really good. And we have a coffee machine as well that's just grinding beans and puts that aura through the office.
Cafe smell.
Yeah, so there's a real cafe shop sort of aroma to our office.
Yeah.
It's quite good.
So
really
you're
good.
actually extremely accomplished, including being a qualified builder.
I love the word extremely accomplished, as we were talking about before we went to air.
So how is it that you came to be an accountant?
I was always good at maths. So, year 12, head down, bum up at school, we had to lodge a form with to say what course we wanted to do at uni.
Yes.
And it was the furthest thing from my mind, but we had to do it in June, which was crazy.
It is crazy, actually.
And so all of my friends, we were there's about 6 of us at school that all put in the form to apply for being an accountant. And I asked one of them in the group what an accountant did, because I didn't even know. I mean, I met my dad's accountant, but he was sort of like this mysterious guy that made plenty of money. And they turned around and said, oh, don't worry, it's a great profession, you'll make a lot of money. Now, money, I probably did it for the wrong reasons because I thought, well, that will set me up, but so much more to it than that. But the fit for me, being good at maths, was the natural, the natural thing that I needed to do well in accounting. Ironically, out of those 6 that started, probably only 1 or 2 are left.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I just went with the group. I went with the flow.
So you're also a podcast host. Is it unusual for an accountant to have a podcast?
Well, accountants are very boring people. So it's very unusual. And I think that I'm probably one of the first ones to do it in Australia.
Who's your podcast for?
Well, it's for everyone. But I mean, I know this is selfish, but I think it's mainly for me.
What's it called?
It's called The Accounting Insider.
There you go.
But it has been a real journey for me because I just started out doing it as a bit of fun. And my first introduction to my podcast was just awful. And I cringed when I listened to it because I was just like a rabbit in the headlights. But now, after 80 episodes, it's much more relaxed. I sort of know what I'm doing.
Yes.
I often listen to my own podcast, which makes me feel like vomiting because I can't listen to my own voice.
Yeah,
you know what it's like for anyone.
Yeah.
But I actually really like the place that it's at the moment. And it's been received really well. Like,
there's people who chase you for episodes, isn't there?
Yeah, there are. Absolutely. And I just knock them back because I really only want to do what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really good mantra to have with that, because if I'm having fun, well, then it doesn't really matter about the downloads, but that's all just happening in the background anyway because I'm happy doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's been such a blast. Like some of the
But
people,
you've also got some very avid listeners, I think, don't you?
I have.
And if they're missing hearing new episodes, they get in touch and say what's going on.
They do, exactly. They contact. But
I love that.
I also use it as a marketing tool. So
Yes.
if I'm trying to get a client over the line, I will ask them to come on my show as a guest, and that is a huge. That's a huge game winning move with those people because they feel like you really have this connection after you've done a podcast with them, because you can ask them all these exciting questions. They feel like a rock star.
Yes.
And then, when they're walking out, it's like, you don't have to say it, but you're thinking, well, has your accountant done a podcast with you? Well, usually they haven't got a personality. They're too busy in their office crunching away the numbers. But yeah, it's been awesome. And I've got a lot of work out of it too. Like, people have been contacting me from the States, all around the globe, wanting to connect with me. Can I do stuff? Will I mentor them? The mentoring thing, I think I said that in one episode that I was happy to mentor people. I've sort of got to shut that down because
too many
people approach me.
Is there a secret to wealth building? Do you work with your clients on that sort of thing?
I do. I think the secret to wealth building is, I only go down the track of shares or property. I think that the shares thing is really, people don't do it well because they try to do too much at once. The secret to wealth building, in my opinion, is a little bit often. So it's starting a savings plan, locking money into superannuation. The beauty of superannuation is you can't touch it. Yeah. You lock it away. And it's doing, like, when you're 20, the stats show that if you put $20 away a week, which you wouldn't even notice, you'll have $1 million by the time you retire.
And it's that persistence thing again, isn't it?
It is.
And the discipline around it to have a plan and stick to it.
Yeah. It's locking it away. The other thing that I'm big on is property investing. So I like doing that. I think that there's a different set of rules with that. It's a case of, the classic is building the profit into the purchase price, getting a bargain when you buy, and then the rest will take care of itself. So there's, people say, well, how can you do that if you're buying at auction? Well, auctions aren't a great idea. I do letter drops. I think outside the square. I just bought a house at Montacute. I sent out 40 letters. You
said, I want to buy your house to 40 people, did you?
I did. And it worked. 10 people rang me.
Wow.
Now, no one gets those sorts of results, but I've refined this letter. I've probably sent it out 300 times. And now it just gets better and better. It's customized. It's handwritten.
You should do just a podcast on this.
Yeah, I should.
So interesting.
I bought 4 properties, which I still own, all from letter drops.
Wow.
It works. People have given up on it. But if you get a handwritten letter in the post,
I know.
Are you likely to open up and read it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're all typed.
Yeah.
And I customize it. So I've got the name of the owner of the property.
Of course.
And that, that gets their attention.
Not the resident.
No, that's right. Because
the owner, the homeowner.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, just going back with the shares and investments.
Yeah, let's talk more about that.
So what I like doing with that now is, it used to be shares, then it went to managed funds. Now it's all exchange traded funds, ETFs.
Yeah, that's a Warren Buffett thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, to get the results like Warren, you got to understand his mind. And he said that, when he dies, he wants his wife to put all of his money into an indexed fund, the S&P 500. Now, you look at him and you think that would be the last thing that he would say. So there's a lesson in there for everyone. I think he put up $1 million as a challenge too for any stockbroker in the US who could outperform the index. And he still got his money. No one's been able to do it. So for me, that means I can be a great financial planner if I just invest in the index and just use exchange-traded funds. There's no rocket science to it, but this is groundbreaking for a lot of investors that come to me.
Yeah, okay.
So my financial planning business is just absolutely going off the charts at the moment because word gets out.
Yeah.
And, you can do all the advertising in the world, but word of mouth is... So as soon as I'd done my first $3 million investment for financial planning, which is a lot of money for me, then those deals were just lining up at the door. He'd told his mates.
Yep.
They hadn't even all gone through yet.
Because birds of a feather.
Absolutely. So now financial planning is just really growing really well in our business. And I never expected it like that. But, and the other thing is we only moved into that space because we couldn't really find an independently wealthy financial planner that we could meet with that knew what they were doing and that was winning in their own world.
Yeah.
Like, the first time I ever see a consultant, I always try to think now, that person's great on stage, but what sort of car are they driving and what house they live in?
Yeah. And what's their debt position?
Exactly. That's the proof of the pudding.
Who has influenced you and how did they do it?
So there's one major person that influenced me, and that was my first boss. So I used to work for PricewaterhouseCoopers, but I left there and then went and set up my own practice. But part-time, I worked for a guy in North Adelaide, and he was just amazing. He had a property portfolio. He drove a Porsche. He was a sole practitioner, but he taught me everything. Like it was almost like how to be a man too.
Yeah, cool.
Like I copied everything he did. So I ended up buying exactly the same car. I bought the same, I have an accountancy practice that was exactly the same as his. I used the same software. But I'd learn what he would say. So as soon as I recorded my voicemail on my phone, I mimicked him. And then, like just a classic example of this is I used to ask him if he'd want a coffee because I was his secretary effectively.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't say, yes, please, or he'd say, I'd love one. So every time my receptionist asked me in the morning, I would say, because she always brings me a coffee, which is amazing. She's wonderful. But I always say, I'd love one.
So you're still influenced by him?
Absolutely. And I catch up with him still on a regular basis. He's sold his accountancy practice. But he was just such a massive influence with me. And also, like, it was... No one had ever taught me that having an accountancy practice and then having a property portfolio went hand in hand together. And, I was like talking about not Section 51 of the Income Tax Assessment Act. You'd talk to clients about tax loopholes and things that they could understand. It was all client-focused. Yeah. And then, just other things that we'd talk about. Like he was just such an amazing role model for me. He'd say to me, Kym, family is everything. And it was just inspirational. And every Christmas we'd go to a Christmas party and he'd drink. So I got a chance to drive his Porsche and I would absolutely thrash it down the side streets.
Things that are important.
And we'd talk about life and, we just dream.
Yeah.
And he was a great storyteller. He'd go out for lunch every day and he introduced to me the importance of being, someone who's like, it was to do with branding of his accountancy practice, but he sort of pitched that he had this lifestyle where he travelled first class around the world. And that was, people wanted to be around people like that.
Yeah. They still do, don't they?
They do. And they love a long lunch.
Yes.
And FBT sort of killed that when it was introduced, but it's still, there's a massive place for it.
Yeah.
And a lot of business is done over lunch.
Yeah.
And just all of those fundamentals he brought to the table and really introduced the importance of them into my life.
If you could interview absolutely anyone in the world for your podcast, who would it be?
Well, I think we were talking about Elon Musk. So,
yes,
I'd love to interview him. I'm South Australian, so I'd like to interview people like the Shahins, Yasser and Sam. They've done amazing things with it on the run. I love
and
locals.
The Bend. Have you been there?
And the Bend. No, I haven't been there yet.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Have you driven around it?
I have done the go-karting.
Well, you're an adrenaline junkie. I love it. I'd love to do that as well. I just think that they've got such a great business model where they bought all of these service stations. I think they've got 200. They bought them when they had contaminated soil. Service stations were on the nose. No one wanted to go anywhere near that whole industry. They developed a model where they worked with the EPA, got the soil remediated, introduced new pumps, state-of-the-art service stations, and now they've got basically supermarkets in there. And they're, it's $1 billion industry. They're killing it. They're just local success stories. I just love that. And they came out from, the Middle East with basically nothing in the 80s, and look at them today.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, that would be one person that those two guys would be like, I'd like to interview Con Polides if I could bring him back from the dead.
I know.
He had 56 companies and trusts. I've got 8.
Yeah.
That's my benchmark. I'm trying to get to the 56.
That's a bit to go, but you're in the...
I'm in the hunt.
Yeah, you're on the... you're on the path.
Yeah.
Do you have a daily routine that helps keep you motivated? Because you are very consistent, I think, about...
I do. I was thinking about this. My inspiration comes in the shower.
Yeah, I don't think that's uncommon.
So if I've got a really difficult question that's bugging the hell out of me, I'll leave it or walk away from my desk at 5 o'clock and I will sleep on it. And almost certainly the inspiration and the answer comes when I'm having a shower the next morning. But my daily routine is I drop the kids off at school every day and I pick them up most nights after school. So you can imagine what a hole in my daily life that makes. But family's everything, as I said. So I structure my day around my kids. And if they're sick or whatever, I'll go and get them. And then I try to take off all my school holidays. But just getting back to the time that I spend in the car, it gives me a tremendous amount of time to think. And I think that's a game changer for me.
Yeah.
And I can make phone calls while I'm in the car, but I can just think and I can solve problems.
Time.
And that's the point of difference. Like, I like to think of myself as a thought leader in the accounting space. And so plenty of time in the car comes up with plenty of creative solutions, and it's not doing, it's working smarter, not harder. I know that's a cliche, but if I can sit down and answer an email to a doctor who's asked me a difficult question and I've put twice the amount of thought in that all the other accountants have come up with, I look so much better when I'm presenting that answer to them.
So is there a particular type of client that you love working with? You love working with doctors, I think.
Yeah, I do. Again, I was away skiing in Falls Creek with the family, and it was just spring. They extended the season for a week. There was no one there, and it was just gold. And I was snowboarding down the summit run in Falls Creek, and it was just a beautiful spring day, and I was there basically on the run by myself. And I had my headphones in, and I was blasting some tunes through, and it was idyllic. Like it died and gone to heaven. And I was like, I just want to solve this morning who my ideal client is.
Yeah.
And then it just came to me like a bolt of blue.
See, that's that quiet time again.
It is.
And in nature.
Yes. And it was a doctor. I just want to go hard on doctors. So that was 2 years ago. And we changed everything in our practice to focus on doctors and know everything we could about them. Yeah. And the first couple that we worked on, we didn't really know what we were doing. But as you learn and you get these clients who come from other practices, especially, you get better and better at your craft. Now I think we're like industry leaders.
So what percentage of your practice is doctors now?
Well, it would probably be 30 to 50%, but that's changing.
That's the same with my practice.
So you can't, blast out. Sorry, all the marketing that we're doing online is all directed at doctors.
Yeah.
And that's a game changer, because we're getting 2 to 3 new doctors a week off the internet.
Yes.
Which is phenomenal. And so I can see that mix will be like, in a year or two, it'll be 80%. And then eventually it'll be 100.
But there's so much value in working with someone who specialises in your area.
There's so much to know. Like, we do insurance for doctors. Well, they've got their own set. Like, there are insurance providers who specialise in doctors. We use them. We use their best product because it's been tried and tested.
Exactly.
They're getting better and better.
Yes.
Like, if you go to someone who's just a generalist, they've got no idea about that. And then we're sitting down with doctors, educating them when they come to us. Like, You know, like if you're with Super SA, they have a product where they've got income protection insurance for 2 years. Well, so we have a 2-year waiting period on our insurance policies. There's just all those sorts of things, and then setting up service trusts for medical practices. All of that stuff just works so well. We've got a model, we've got markups, and we just get better and better at being specialists in that sector.
And so when you're talking about doctors, there's GPs, specialists, like working with the whole
gambit.
Dentists?
Yeah, dentists as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So we really, the first time the phone rings usually is with people when they, they need an ABN because they've become a locum doctor. That's where it all starts.
That's the starting point.
Yeah, and then it rolls into the bigger medical practices, which was what we love. Yeah. And we're getting better and better
and helping them grow
and sitting in on their board meetings, providing meaningful
so they understand the numbers.
Monthly reports.
Yeah.
And our industry is now all moving into statistics.
Yes.
Like those board reports that we're doing are showing how many hours each doctor has worked and what's their recoverable hourly rate per what's their charge per consult on average. And then that's a game changer for people because you don't have to change a lot of things. But if you're looking at those numbers and the doctors are getting feedback every month on what they're doing, well, then they can start to move the pieces into place so that they can start to either work more hours, which is not always encouraged, but certainly get a higher charge per consult.
Per time that they're actually working. Yeah.
And the results are phenomenal.
It's amazing.
And who would have thought that us as accountants are moving down?
Could influence that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's awesome.
It's really good. It works really well.
Is there any questions that I haven't asked you that I should have asked?
Well, no, that last one was probably, I was going to say, well, where do you think the accounting profession is going and how can you add most value for the doctors? I think that it's on the monthly reporting.
Yeah.
You know, we use Xero and we also use Fathom and we've got amazing reports now which we're able to provide to medical practices. So I think that's where we can add the most value in their terms of their day-to-day operation. We're also able to, I hope this doesn't sound like a product vlog, but, getting in charge of their wealth, which they probably overlook, and opening their eyes up, lifting the curtain so that they can see the importance of wealth creation.
And that a tax strategy is not wealth creation as well.
No.
Which sometimes people think, if I save tax, then I'll save more money.
That's right. Like, I think that they always think that if I shop around, I'll get an accountant who can save me tax. But that's usually, it's important, tax minimisation, don't get me wrong, but you want to have peace of mind that you're not paying a cent less or a cent more than you otherwise need to, but you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Because
otherwise you can hear about it in the future.
Exactly. And doctors, because they're the top 1% of income earners, the ATO would love to make an example of them if they can. And you don't want that to happen to anyone.
No.
So you always want to fly under the radar. You want to do the right thing.
Agree.
But there's so much scope inside of all of that to create so much wealth and do so much good that you can play by the rules and still kill it.
I love working with doctors because I love working with people who help people.
Yeah, well, that's right. You said that to me. They are great people, I like them because they're intelligent.
Yes.
They're interesting.
Yes.
They make plenty of money, so there's plenty of scope to
help them.
And yeah, they're great people to socialise with. That's what I like doing.
Thanks for coming in today.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on the show.
If you're an accountant on purpose, feel free to find our Facebook page and join our community.